So today we're going to talk about transforming and moving functions. So overall we call these transformations, and specifically today we're going to talk about translations, which are a type of transformations. So a vertical translation, which is kind of pictured here to the right, is when you move something up or down, and it's when you would add or subtract something to the end of the problem. And we'll see an example of that in a second. A vertical stretch means that the slope got bigger. And it means that you're kind of stretching the whole graph itself upwards. And a shrink means that the slope gets smaller. And we're kind of shrinking that graph down. So let's practice here first. So we're going to start with this equation, and I'm just going to graph that as kind of a base equation for us to go off of. So I started at 0 because there wasn't an intercept, and then I went up 4 and then to the left 1 and down 4 to the right 1. Now we're going to do this one, g of x equals negative 4x minus 3. So if you notice, the only difference here is this minus 3. So I'm going to start 3 down and do the same exact slope. So I'm going to go up 4 to the left 1, and then 1, 2, 3, down 4, and to the right 1. So what do you notice about these lines? Well, they are parallel because they have the same slope, but this one went down 3. So I went from right here to right here. So I went down 3 spaces. Okay, so let's try that now with our other one here, this one. So this time we're going to start up at 8, and again, do the same slope. And I'm going to connect my dots. If you notice, they are still parallel because it's the same slope. But this time, we went from here at 0 up to here at 8. So I went up 8. So if you add, it goes up. If you subtract, it goes down. Okay, next we're going to try changing the slope. So here, I'm going to start with graphing this base equation here. So I'm going to start up at 7 and do my slope of 3. I'm going to connect these. And when we start graphing multiple things on one graph, sometimes it's easy to label them to know the difference. So I'm going to go ahead and label this f of x. If you don't have different colors, that can be helpful. Now I'm going to do this one. So again, I'm going to start at 7, but this time my slope is 1/3. So I'm going to go up 1 over 3, and I'll go down 1 over 3. I'm going to connect these, and I'll go ahead and label this one g of x. And this one, you can kind of see it's as if it got pushed downwards. So this is a shrink. It's kind of like it got pushed down. That's why it's considered a shrink. Or you can see our slope got smaller, and that's why it's also a shrink. And the intercept is the same. Okay, our next one, we are going to graph this. So I'm going to start down at negative 4 and a slope of 4. All right, I'm going to connect to these. So it does have a different y-intercept. So we started up here at 7, and we went all the way down to 4. So from 7 to 4, if you sometimes people like to sketch little graphs here. We started at 7 and went down to 4. The difference between these numbers is 11. So we went down 11. And then our line kind of got stretched up. It's kind of hard to tell, but it got stretched because it has a bigger slope. All right, our last one here, I'm not going to graph all of these. I'm just going to talk about how they move. So here is our regular equation. So the only thing that changed here is the negative 3. So if I started down here at -5 and I ended up here at -3, that means that I went up 2. All right, on our next one, again, I'm starting down here at -5 and I ended up here at -2. So if I start here, that means that I went up 3. But what's also different is the slope, and it got bigger, so this is going to be a stretch. The next one would be a shrink because the slope got smaller, but if you notice, there isn't an intercept. So I went from -5 to 0. So I went up 5. Here we have the same intercept, so that didn't change. The only thing that changed was the slope, and it got smaller, so that is a shrink. And then down here is just kind of a summarization. So if you add something, it's going to go up. If you subtract something, it will go down. If your slope is bigger than 1, that's going to be a stretch. And if it's a fraction, if it's in between 0 and 1, that is a shrink.